result, which usually leads to increased rates of punishment or more severe punishment for offenders. Another cause is that societal sensibilities, or the attitudes and beliefs of the society, often change, which in turn changes the types of acts we consider crimes and the types of things we consider as just punishment. So although we're often taught to look at crime as directly correlated to punishment, there's actually an argument to be made that they're working somewhat independently of each other. Which brings us to our first stop in the history of legal discrimination in the United States: colonialism and slavery. After colonies were established in North America, colonists were subject to the laws and customs of England. In their essay Situating Colonialism, Race, and Punishment, Professors Jeeta Chowdhury and Mark Beeman explain how the development of slavery in the North American colonies, and later in the early United States, became dependent on the passage of discriminatory laws that specifically targeted people of African descent. They detail how, although the concept of discrimination based on ethnic or social groups dates back to antiquity, the idea that race was entirely based on skin tone and physical features evolved alongside the emergence of chattel slavery. Then the ideal was solidified with the emergence of scientific racism in the 18th and 19th centuries. Chowdhury and Beeman go on to note that although some of the original people of African descent who entered the English colonies came as indentured servants and were eventually set free, similar to English indentured servants, this quickly changed when colonists turned to chattel slavery as a source of consistent, exploited, and unpaid labor. They write, "In other words, slavery seems to have evolved in part as a punishment reserved for Africans originally indentured. English indentured servants, presumably protected by English rights and the Christianity they shared with their masters, avoided such punishment. From the 1640s through the 1660s, with the principle of lifelong involuntary servitude established for Africans in colonial America, individual colonies began enacting legislation declaring Negroes sent to the colonies and their offspring slaves for life. In short, slavery in British colonial America became a punishment for being black." With this important distinction, colonial America created the system of chattel slavery that sentenced black people to perpetual servitude. Slavery created an explicit relationship between race and the law from the earliest foundations of American society. And this new legal category meant that new forms of punishment and torture were invented to accommodate this shift in who could be considered a full person under the law. Soon, laws and colonial codes were written to regulate the control and punishment of the enslaved. Although slavery was not the first instance of race being tied to laws in the new colonies, the colonization of land in North America was based on the assumption that Native Americans did not have rights to the land they had inhabited long before settler colonialism declared North America as uninhabited. Therefore, laws that allowed white settlers to displace and physically harm Native Americans also established an early relationship between race and the law in colonial America. While most punishment was left up to slave owners,